Have you ever stopped and wondered, why do we use forks? Sure, they're a basic part of every meal, but the history of the fork is far more fascinating than you might think. From ancient royal courts to your dinner table today, this everyday utensil has a story that spans centuries. Let's travel back to ancient times. People didn't always use forks. In fact, for most of history, eating was done with hands or spoons and knives. The earliest utensils we know of, like spoons, date back to ancient Egypt around 3000 BCE. Knives, of course, have been around even longer, primarily for cutting food. Back then, eating with your hands was the norm, especially in Roman and Greek societies. If you wanted to be fancy, you might use a spoon or a knife. But forks, they just didn't exist. Fast forward to the Byzantine Empire in the 4th century. This is where we start to see the first mentions of the fork as a serving tool, not for eating, but for holding and serving food. Imagine these two-pronged tools, often made of gold or silver, used by royals to serve food or carve meat. While these forks weren't yet used for eating, they were seen as a symbol of luxury, something only the rich and powerful could afford. Now let's head to Italy in the 11th century. This is where the fork starts to creep into European dining culture. The Byzantine princess Theodora Anna is often credited with introducing the fork to Italy after her marriage to the emperor. But believe it or not, it wasn't exactly a hit. Many Italians thought using a fork to eat was strange and even a bit effeminate. In fact, forks were so unusual that many people refused to use them, and it took a long time for them to catch on in everyday life. Fast forward to the 16th century, when Catherine de Medici, the Italian-born Queen of France, brought forks to the French court after marrying King Henry II. This was when the fork began to gain a little more traction in Europe, especially among the royal elite. Even then, the fork wasn't widely accepted by the general public. It remained a luxury tool used by the wealthy and aristocratic, those who could afford fine dining etiquette. In the 17th century, forks started showing up more frequently in French and Italian royal courts. But in England, the fork was still met with resistance. People simply weren't ready for this odd utensil. Instead, they kept using their knives and spoons to eat, often with their hands. By the end of the 17th century, forks had finally started gaining favor with some of Europe's elite, but it was still a slow transition. By the 18th century, things started changing. The fork began to spread beyond the royal courts, especially in countries like France and Italy. As dining etiquette became more formalized, forks became a symbol of refinement and good manners. Suddenly, having a fork on your dining table was not just about eating, it was about showing that you were cultured and sophisticated. The 19th century marked a huge shift. With the Industrial Revolution, manufacturing became faster and cheaper. For the first time, forks were mass-produced and could be afforded by people of all social classes. Stainless steel forks entered the market, making them more affordable, durable, and easier to clean, so everyone could have one, not just the wealthy. Today, forks are an essential part of dining all around the world. Whether you're eating a salad, pasta, or even dessert, forks have become a universal tool. From formal dinners to picnics and even fast food, the fork has come a long way, from an oddity in royal courts to an indispensable part of our daily lives. So next time you sit down for a meal, take a moment to appreciate the humble fork. It's not just a tool for eating, it's a piece of history that has evolved through centuries of culture, fashion, and social change. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on more fascinating stories like this. See you in the next one.